Hello, 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 and welcome back to It's All Good. I'm your co-host, Latavia.
And I'm Shay. And we want to welcome you guys back to part 2 of our Christian dating episode, or I guess mini-series. But we have some wonderful people here today. We have Dan back. Hey, Dan.
Hey, what's going on, fam? I'm so happy to be back.
What's up, Quay?
What's up?
And joining us for the first time is Onna. Hey, girl,
Hey.
So we do something here to start off each and every episode. And even though this is part 2, we want to start off with what we're grateful for. So, Latavia, the co-host with the most, can you start us off with what you're grateful for?
Sure. I've literally been trying to think of how to sum it all up because there's so many things, but I am grateful for being alive like right now because I've been doing the Bible in 1 year, to give it some context. I've been doing the Bible in 1 year plan and been in the Old Testament with Numbers and Deuteronomy and all of the rules and regulations. I would be dead right now if we still lived under those laws, or just my life would be real different. So I'm grateful to be alive now after Jesus.
That's what's up. We're all glad to be alive. Let's go with Onna. Hey, girl, hey. What you grateful for?
I am grateful for scientific advancements. So specifically Clorox wipes in this day and age, really just being able to protect myself as much as possible. We know that plagues and sicknesses have been around for a very, very long time, and they take out a very large percent of populations usually. And so being able to protect ourselves as much as possible is great. So the good people at Lysol and Clorox and their parent companies, I really am grateful for you. And if you could, make some more though, because the shelves are bare. But I am grateful for what I have.
At least, as long as you can find it and are not ingesting it, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yes, for external use only. Yeah.
Quay, what are you grateful for, sir?
Man, I'm grateful for a whole lot. Honestly, I'm grateful for my team, for the church, just to be able to just be a blessing to a lot of people in need, especially those that don't have, income for their large families, to be able to do it for them. So shout out to Alpha for that and for having me for that. And just grateful for just the people that I work with, to just be a support system for a lot of people that just need that positive distraction in the season that we're in. So we just been abusing Zooms left and right to just be a positive distraction for the people.
That's what's up. I like that. And Dan, what you grateful for?
I am grateful for peace of mind, and the peace that I find in the presence of God and all of this unknown. It's similar to what I was grateful for last time, on the first episode, but it's the same thing, because it's so much of the unknown and, unprecedented times, but I can still find peace in the presence of God. And that's priceless.
That's what's up.
And Shay, we didn't forget about you. Yeah, you. What are you grateful for today?
Well, today I am grateful for the again, to be able to be working, but also a creative mind, because again, I've just kind of been in this space of just creating things and just doing things that I used to do that I'm kind of picking back up on. And right now I've kind of taken on a new project on redecorating my living room. Yeah, but nothing is getting here as fast as I want it to, which is starting to stress me out. Like COVID-19 is like making delivery, instead of Amazon Prime being 2 days, it's like 2 weeks, and I'm not understanding. But that's what I'm grateful for: creativity and a creative mind.
Speaking of creativity, I just want to make sure that I say this publicly, that all of the graphics and videos and images that you all see, Shay does that. She creates it. And so all of the visuals that you see, the elevation of the visuals and everything, I want to make sure that I publicly give her credit for that and say thank you. She knows that, you know, I say this regularly, but like I said, want to make sure it's out there in the public for all the people to know and hear. So thank you.
Yay.
Thanks. So I am very excited because I know that talking to a couple of you guys that everybody has been anticipating this part 2 of Christian dating. And I know that the very first episode just kind of touched the surface level, but this episode here is going to go a lot deeper than anyone ever expected. So let's get to it. Latavia, I know you got some questions, girl.
Yeah, I have. So one of the things I think we started kind of inching towards it that I kind of wanted us to pick up in terms of dating, because we talked about how people define it, what it is. We also realized we don't want new friends. Well, I don't. But
as a ringtone.
To that point, dating versus courting. Are they the same? If they're not, what's the difference? Why is there a difference?
So I think I can start off with that. I think what we alluded to last time, it comes down to the person. So you have to ask them. It comes down to the individual because, again, different upbringings, different philosophies and beliefs in churches. Some churches say it's not a such thing as dating, but there's courting. But, you know, society, some households, right, believe in dating, you know, and it's just the time that we live in. So I think it all comes down to the individual. And again, I think it goes back to making sure you ask them, okay, do you see a difference between dating and courting? I think for me and where I am now and what I've learned is that dating is more so that it's that pre-stage before you start courting intentionally towards engagement and marriage. But dating it's that process where you're evaluating, okay, yeah, and you're learning more about this person. And I think it is exclusively, because I don't believe that people should date more than one person, because then it can become a comparison of, okay, this person does this, but not that, but this person does this and this. And it makes everything so murky.
So how is that different than courting? So if courting is like the idea of two people coming together to go towards marriage. So in my mind, you've already passed that dating phase of evaluating who you want to be in close proximity to for a longevity on long terms. So like dating to me, I just feel as if it's that moment where you are, again, evaluating. Take, like, you may go on a date with Sammy, but Sammy ain't, you know, hitting when you get done. You may go on a date 2 days later with Jim. Jim could be like, all right, cool. And, you know, you talk to him. So, I mean, and is that a difference?
No. So I think that, again, I don't think, but that's still, the way that you explain it, I look at that as being still dating one person. Sometimes you can go out on a date or even one phone call with a person and you just know that, you know what, I've met people like that, especially when it comes down to their relationship with God, right? If I hear certain things that I'm like, okay, this is definitely somebody who I can possibly minister to, but this is not my potential spouse. And so, again, I don't believe, again, there's different beliefs, right? I wouldn't date more than one person at a time, because I want to make sure my focus is intentional on that person. And even so, when I first start, I think dating, that whole season of dating shouldn't last long, because you're evaluating, and if you're being intentional about it, dating should not last 6 to 9 months. I don't even understand why it should take that long.
One person, or the course of dating several people?
No, I'm talking about dating one person. Like, once you start to understand that, okay, this person is, and again, it's all about being intentional about it.
Courting. So, okay, if you're on a series, so if I decide to go on a date, like 5 dates with Jeff, and then after the 5th date or whatever, we talk all the time, I just decide, you know, maybe this is not going to work. I mean,
Yeah.
that's dating, but like at the same time, I mean, if we're not committed to each other, and I think committing into being with one person or to simply just talking to one person is a conversation between the parties, right? Or am I like going off left? Because
No.
Again, it goes back to what your beliefs are, and I think having that conversation to say,
hold on, what were you gonna say, Latavia?
No. I was going to say, I agree. I think it goes back to how we define dating or that whole thing, because I think you all are saying similar things, but I guess, and I think, Quay, you mentioned this the last time about we're hanging out. Let's call it hanging out, because I think in the sense of dating, how we think of it is, if, like as Shay was saying, I went out with Jeff today, I'm going out with John in 2 days, like that's the getting to know phase. But then maybe kind of, Dan, to your point, after a few dates or a few outings, then I decide, okay, this is somebody that I think I can build something with. So now we have that conversation of we are in a, I think back in the day they called it going steady, or like we're in an exclusive relationship where now I am committing to date you or be in a relationship with you and only you, and we're building towards something long term. And I guess that's, in my mind, that's where it turns into a courtship, because we're now together for the sole purpose of building towards getting married.
Yeah.
But before that, we're getting to know each other.
Okay.
And I'll also add to that. So after the hangout phase, if you feel like, you know, you guys have hanged out, not just by yourselves, but you guys have hanged out with intentions of getting to know each other, and you hanged out with other group of friends as well, especially people that you seek wisdom from, and people that have already been through trials and tribulations of relationships and marriage, right? And y'all can, and you can seek counsel from some of these people that you look up to and say, hey, you know, just honestly, just how do you feel about this person? And how do you like the interaction with them? There's wisdom and counsel. And if majority is pretty much like a pretty good go as well, and you also get the same feedback from the person that you're into as well, like, hey, did you also ask, you know, the people that you look up to that have been quite successful, had time in relationships, that they see, you know, us being a pretty good fit, or like me, you know, in terms of like the way I'm treating you and stuff like that, and the feedback is good on both ends, then yeah, the conversation could be there for like, all right, then yeah, we can have that exclusive relationship going into courting if both of our end goal is marriage.
Why? Okay, so I've heard this a couple times. I know that people who date, like, it's kind of like taboo in the church, where people are like, you're not really supposed to like date or do extensive things. But why so much pressure or emphasis on the people who I guess you look up to? So for example, if you're in the church, I guess a lot of relationships end up having, I'm gonna call them sponsors. I really don't know what the word would be technically for that. It's like, so if me and Jimmy are like dating in the church, and then we end up having sponsors, which is another married couple that we are looking to, why is it so much pressure on us to look to them for, I guess, acceptance?
Well, I didn't say one though. It could be a multiple of people, and it doesn't mean you have to take, but it's just getting that feedback of what they see that you might not see. That's all it is, and what you decide to do with that information's up to you.
and I think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And I think it's what Quay is alluding to is having those spiritual counselors already in your life who knew you as a single person before, so they already understand the foundation of who you are. So if they start to see that you're changing who you are as you're dating this person, and it could be changing for the worse, then they can advise you. Those are spiritual counselors and advisors.
But what
not
if they
somebody
don't know you on a personal, like some of these people that become your spiritual advisors, they don't see you day to day or on a normal basis. So does that mean that you have to spend time with them outside of church, or
you
you
should.
know? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what the hangout's for. Yeah, that's what the hangout's for. Yeah.
No, not with the person you're dating. I'm talking about with like your spiritual advisors.
Yeah. With
So is
spiritual,
it hanging out with the spiritual advisors? Because that feels like, you know, back in the day, like I live in Delaware, so there's a lot of Amish around. Like they actually have like actual chaperones that go out with them, and while they're dating, while they're courting, while they're getting to know each other. Is that the expectation, that they are there with you, kind of like chaperoning the interaction to see how you all interact. Because I feel like when you go back and report, it's all kind of like one-sided. And if they have no relationship with this other person, if they don't know this other person, then they're only going on what they see. And if they see a change, be it good, be it bad, they still don't necessarily know where that comes from. So are these people also cool with
both parties?
Yes.
So there should be some events, whether if it's dinners or just the couple that's dating, they should have some interactions with the couple or whoever those advisors are, whether it's over dinner. And it's not it's not like similar to what what we saw or what we read, back in the days where they would follow them behind, they're walking behind them. No, it's an interaction over dinner, maybe a movie night, or something where there's some interaction where they can get a chance to meet that person. And seeing how, I think one of the most important things is seeing how the person that they know, seeing how they're reacting, if they're reacting differently around this person, because I think that's the key.
So I have a quick question. So I was married once before, and my spouse didn't really care for my church. He didn't care, not saying he didn't care for church or God. He just didn't have, he didn't care for the actual place of worship that I went to. So how is it getting spiritual advisors for that situation? So what if your spouse, I mean, because we are talking about Christian datings, we're saying that they're Christians, they have their own church or whatever that they go to, but just because they may not like the other people, like, so does that make a difference on how these spiritual advisors work? And how often do you have to see your spiritual advisors? How often are you talking to them? Is there conversation between the men and the women separately? Like, what does that process look like?
I mean, I feel like if it's getting that deep where you really don't know within a month of hanging out or 2 months of hanging out that person, I mean, you really just got to seek the spirit and pray on it and fast. If you really feel like that's the case where you've done all that you could, you seek your wisdom, you seek the counsel, you guys have both done it for both parties, both together or individually, then that's where you got to use your spiritual discernment and fast on it. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I hear everything that y'all are saying, and I get it, having the covering, or I've heard it called accountability partners. And I think that's all great. But I guess I want to take it kind of looking at it from the perspective of someone, say, maybe I'm not that involved in my church. I'm just getting there. I'm still learning. I'm still building. And maybe I don't feel that comfortable bringing these people, whoever, into the relationship. I think of it as, in all things, we should seek wise counsel. And so for me, when I look at it, and in my experiences, it's like, okay, if I'm getting to know someone, I'm checking to see, okay, is this someone that I could build with? Do I want to? And then once I get to a point where I feel like, okay, yes, I think we're on the same page, this could go somewhere. I think in terms of, instead of trying to confine it to this thing of spiritual advisors or someone in the church, like, yes, you should have people that speak into your life and that align with your beliefs, but I don't think it has to be somebody in the church. Like, for example, to me, my parents are good barometers to me of, hey, and you're not going to get to them until I think, okay, everything I've been taught, I learned, I've kind of run through and checked. So some things that I do, if in terms of, you guys mentioned group outings, which I want to come back to that later, but like, come around my friends. I want to see you around your friends. Like, to me, those are kind of precursors, huh?
A good indicator of who that person is, too.
Right. Like, I want to see you in multiple environments. And then, I'm going to have you come around my friends because I want to see how you act around them, how you treat them. And then also, I want to hear from them because they know me. And then they can let me know, like, hey, I don't know, maybe just keep an eye out for this. Or no, hey, it seems cool. And then I also have friends who are older. I have godparents or just other people that it's like, hey, these are some things that I've been seeing, and kind of run those things by them. So I think that's another way. Those are all ways to have the advisors or the accountability without necessarily, because I guess I don't want us to give the impression that it has to be somebody in the church
Right.
that you are going to see. Like, I think that's good and that's wise. And if you have that relationship with someone in your church, then by all means, if you are on that level with them, something you know, if you feel comfortable, do that and be open to being held accountable.
So go ahead.
I agree. I totally agree with you. It doesn't have to be somebody in your church. I think that what I've learned is that I want to see who you're being counseled by, right? Because in your single season, because guess what? If and when we get married, there will be times that you're upset with me. We'll love each other, but you may not always like me, and that's reality, right? I want to know before that who you're going to get your advice from, because that's not going to stop. So I want to make sure that whoever, like you said, whether it's close friends or mentors or whomever, I want to make sure there's some biblical foundation in what they're advising you with. And it doesn't have to be somebody in the church, because again, in those tough times, and I think we see it a lot, in those tough times when it may be a time when you don't like me, where we have a disagreement about something, whoever's advising you now, those are going to be the same people who will advise you in our marriage. And so I need to know that they're not going to tell you, well, you know what, you just need to go on and go out for a night, and you know, you need to get some space, you know, and it's a lot of bad advice out here.
So what's wrong with getting space?
I'm talking about that bad space. I'm talking about
bad space, because my Latavia's not. If she advises me, hey, you and Jimmy, I forgot my boyfriend's name at this point that I made up. Jimmy having some bad time, or you not getting along. It's okay to go space. I mean,
in marriage, it's not good. It's not good to have space in marriage.
You might need to walk away and come back and have this conversation. Not every conversation happen at that very moment. So
to my point though, it all depends on what type of advice they're giving you. That's my point. I'm not going, you know, it's not about, you know, I'm talking about space as far as, well, you know, you can go and hang out and do some other stuff. And people advise us stuff all the time. This is why we have so many divorces and so much ignorance in marriage.
Onna, was it something you wanted to say?
Yeah, there's a couple notes there. So I guess, Dan, this directly for you. Like, is it a no-go if their counsel is absolutely not biblically based? Like, what if they're just based on, like, that person they've had a friendship, they've had a relationship for a very long time, they've known that person for a long time, and they may not be, I mean, for the most, I know, I'll speak on me. Like, I have friends that aren't Christian. So, but I still heed their counsel. You know what I'm saying? So is that a no-go? One, is that a no-go for you if their counsel is personally based and not based biblically? You need to know about their counsel if you're married to them. And how would you know what they're saying or what the advice is? Like, I feel like if you guys are at a place where you are having some sort of disagreement, that the other person should be, or you should have the confidence that whatever the advice is given, that your person has the appropriate spirit of discernment in order to say, you know, kind of pick and choose what's going to work for them, right? So why is it that you would have to know, or how would you even know what the advice is?
Okay, so to answer your question, yes, the person who will be my future spouse would have to be advised by someone who applies kingdom principles and live by them. Number one, because God created marriage, not man. And so if they're using their own principles and their own understanding, then that's what they want to advise them with. And so that, again, it's my preference. This is because I've seen people who are advised by their own understanding and they're led down the wrong path. And so, yes, for me, yes, it has to be somebody who's receiving advice that is biblically, that has a biblical foundation, because God created marriage. And so how can somebody advise you in a marriage situation if they're not applying biblical principles? That's
So
just for me.
there are plenty.
Well, maybe it's not even in a biblical. Well, no, I won't say that. So you're saying anything that has to do with your marriage is a biblical situation because it involves your marriage, and marriage is biblical. Am I understanding that right?
I could tie into what Dan's also trying to say. In terms of a kingdom marriage, for it to prosper and to grow, and if it's being built on kingdom beliefs and principles, and you want to have your advisement and counsel, he's saying what he would definitely take top tier advice with or in counsel with is those that understand those kingdom beliefs and values and have that like-mindedness. Now, here's what I'll say to what you're saying on that is this. Now, I can learn, I might gain something or understand something, but you might not like how I'm going to take it. I can learn from the mistakes of people that aren't kingdom. I can learn from the mistakes of people that aren't believers. I can learn, maybe something outside of kingdom principles in terms of finances, but the same thing, if they're good in their finances, I bet it's already in the Bible on how to be good in finances. You get what I'm saying? So I always root back to the source at the end of the day. I'm going to hear you out, but I'm going to root back to the source and my counsel as well.
But you don't feel like you can hear like biblical information from somebody who is not.
That's what I'm saying.
Christian.
Okay,
that's what I was talking about, like the spirit of discernment. Like you can hear what, you can talk to that person, you get whatever from them, and then you cherry pick like, that's it right there. That's what I need.
What's in the source is it. What's in the source is in the source. Like I'm gonna hear my spiritual counselors, and I'm gonna hear the non-spiritual people too. Sure, if they say something or whatever it may be, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna go by the source because my spiritual counselor may be wrong on something too. I might have to at the end of the day, just like Pastor. Hey,
okay, so hold on.
Listen to me. Go back to the source. Check the Bible for yourself. Yeah.
Okay,
go ahead.
so real quick, I'm hearing that that spiritual counsel can be given with whether or not they're Christian or not. I think it's up to us as the individual who is Christian based and believe in these principles to take what we have. Now, I also have something to say that there is this notion in Christianity or in religion in itself, I'm gonna say religion, that Christian people don't always give the best advice also. That's a statement. Christian people sometimes are the ones giving bad advice too. So how fair is it to say that you can't, for whoever your spouse to be or whoever you want to date or court or get married to, say that they cannot get advice from people who are non-spiritual or versus someone who is? We get messed up messages from the pulpit right now. I'm not saying from my church. I'm just saying there's churches out there who
absolutely
jacked up stuff. So why such a strong emphasis on, hey, they have to be Christian based?
I'm not saying that all of their counselors, right? Because you can have a counselor who advises you about business in different areas in your life. Right. But when it comes to marriage, what God has created and what's spiritually, it's a biblical founded unity, right? It's a covenant. If anybody who interprets marriage, anything outside of that, I could not be married to them. That's just for me.
That's cool.
And they can have other advisors. Like, for instance, if their parents who love them dearly, if they're not, devout Christians, that I understand that, right? Will they advise them on something wrong? Sometimes people advise people out of love and the best interest for people all the time. But there's got to be a spiritual counselor there, someone who's poured into them spiritually.
Yeah.
Okay, so they can have spiritual counsel poured into them. But if I decide to go to my best friend who is not religious or whatever, at the end of the day, it's up to me to take what from that. And if I am I have beliefs in the Christian faith and read my Bible and read whatever I'm saying, then it is up to me to say, all right, some of your advice may not be sound, or you are talking sense, and I need to go back and apply this to my relationship.
Question about your best friend. Is your best friend... Oh, okay. Well, for anybody that it has that best friend, is this best friend in a successful marriage or successful in courting somebody for? So it depends on I'm not saying don't hear them out, but also keep in mind, does this person or is this person living how I want to live?
The only thing about that is it's super hard from the outside to be like, yeah, because that's the relationship that I want, because you never know what happens in
Behind closed
when
doors. Right.
behind closed doors. So it's super hard to be like, well, she makes his play every time. That's the kind of relationship I want. It's just kind of
Yeah.
hard to judge another person's relationship, which is why, I had so many questions kind of like about the counsel thing, because you never want, a lot of advice is one-sided, a lot of advice is projection of other things that other people have going on, which is why you need that discernment between what you hear and what you also know for yourself. I mean, if you're feeding yourself according to the word, then that's what you go by. But it's, I don't know. It's just kind of hard to be on the outside judging somebody else. Like, just
Yeah.
because they have what you want, like the kids, the cars, the house, that means nothing.
Oh yeah, nah, yeah.
You got to be They got to be trans. If it's somebody that's already been transparent, you know that hurts. Like for me, being in Monday Night Raw and being in groups with Dan, like there's brothers I can go. Like I know guys who like had some messes in their marriages and still made it through it. And there's some good brothers like I know I can actually seek and talk to this person about this when I'm in a marriage, or so on and so forth. So it's like it also depends how transparent this person's already been with you as well.
So Quay, you brought up groups, and I know Latavia said she wanted to come back to this. So I was reading an article not so long ago that said it gave like a list of like things to do to be successful at Christian dating, and on there was to date in groups. What are your thoughts on dating in groups? I'm
that.
but it said only date in groups. Like, why am I only dating in groups? Latavia, hold on, I don't want to hear from Latavia.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Tavia. I'm sorry, and then Dan, and I'll come back.
I agree, and I see the benefit of dating in groups. And growing up, that's what you heard. If you're gonna date, you need to date in groups. It needs to be group dates. You don't need to be alone with the person. You don't need to be by yourself. And I think group dates can, like I said, I see the benefit of in them, and I see the purpose. But in my mind, the sole purpose, or the reason that for so many people in the church that they have said date in groups, is because you're not supposed to have sex. That's the primary reason why you date in groups, or why, at least speaking on my experience of growing, it's like, no, you don't need to be alone with the person. You don't need to be out after a certain time with this person. You don't need to be on the phone after a certain time with this person, because if you are, there's only one thing on the mind, only one thing happening. And so you need to remove all possibilities and opportunity for you to fall into fornication. And to me, that's where group dating, like that's why it gets pushed and why it gets promoted, which I know, yes, you're supposed to no sex outside of marriage. I'm aware of that. That's what we should be aspiring to if we are trying, in terms of I'm trying to be like Christ and be obedient. But I just being honest, we're not all not having sex. And oftentimes in the church, there's a whole lot of people who are telling you should not be having sex when they themselves are having sex.
And that includes masturbation, right?
Yes, like all of that. Like there's the message specifically.
Sexual immorality. Yeah, period.
Sexual immorality, like specifically within the context of religion. But it's just like, to me, I can't hear or talk about group dating without thinking about that, because that's, to me, they're tied. And so it's just like, why are you group dating? To me, that's the question. Like, are you doing this because somebody told you that's what you need to do, or that's what you should do? Or are you actually out on this group outing because you genuinely want to do it and you want to be around like-minded people? Or you, like I said earlier, for me, sometimes a group outing or group date is because I want to see how you interact with other people. Are you social? Like, are you social? Like, to me, that's my motivation. And go ahead.
I was just saying, I think that group dating is cool. Like, I remember when I was dating, well, before I got married or whatever, me and my best friend at the time, Samantha, she was in a long relationship with her boyfriend. And we always went on double dates or whatever. I mean, but we also went on solo dates. So, I mean, I just feel like it's just another outing. So why is so much emphasis on it?
Because they don't want you to have sex. Or
I think I think that once you start, I know for me, like I'm committed to operating in purity until marriage, and even in my marriage, because so dating in a group setting is not going to, like, I don't have sex on my brain to where I think that's going to prevent me from having sex. I think there's a lot of protection in group dating, especially at the beginning, to where there's not so much pressure on, like, you can all intermingle with each other, right? And it's not so much pressure on, dang, and I mean, everybody knows that pressure when it's a one-on-one right at the beginning. I think in a group setting, I think it takes a lot of the pressure off, and you can really start to, I think, especially having the mindset of every sister, every woman is my sister in Christ, and every man is my brother in Christ. So having that mindset, then it starts to remove all, a lot of the stress, a lot of that strange, just the strange feelings of, dang, am I good enough? And I think we talked about that last time, where you start to develop a friendship because it's more in a safer environment rather than one-on-one. And it does, right? When you're in a one-on-one situation, I think inside of someone's house, yeah, it can lead to thoughts of, okay, hey, and being close to each other and all this other stuff can lead to, sexual immorality and having these sexual thoughts. But I think dating in a group setting, I think it protects more people that way.
Mm-hmm. And you hit a key point too, Dan. It's mindset and really discipline it. Like, not everybody is. So I for me, though, I know I can do it, and I have like the solo. I still, of course, in the beginning, always do the group, of course, and of course to see how the people interact. But a lot of people just aren't disciplined enough. I had to really seek God to be disciplined. So even though I am a virgin, I still have to, just to keep my mind pure, I have to really seek. And that's why I love being on dance call like 5:30 in the morning. I repost it every week. You know what I mean? Like, brothers, like, jump on, because it's something that we really need. But it's like, it's just important that if your mindset isn't there of seeing your brother, your woman and man as your brother, sister in Christ, is going to be very hard when the time comes for you to want to be able to do solo dating outside of groups or outside of that friendship and dating level. So the mindset is where it's at. I'm really taking up to God, and then just praying that dangerous prayer, like, God, if it's for me, give it to me. If it ain't for me, take it from me. Like, we don't pray hard enough sometimes. Sometimes we're not saying that dangerous. Like I said, I tell God that straight up a lot. And I'm telling you, God will make aware and open what is for you and what is not for you.
I agree, that is a dangerous prayer.
So, be bold with it. Don't skirt.
So, Quay, I heard you dropped that you are still a virgin, and I think that is amazing. So I know that I said we're going to get a little deeper this go around, and this is deep. So why is it, okay, so just like, I think the church kind of never really touches on sex as a whole. It's always just kind of talked about abstain, abstain. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to go to hell. Don't do it. But there's people like me, I'm going to be honest and transparent, who did it and do it. Like, I mean, why does the church just kind of speak against it instead of kind of actually teaching the, I guess, in depth about it, the connection, the feelings, and ours, what are those things called? Spiritual, soul ties. Do you think that they're actually there? So
biblically, the word soul ties is not in the Bible, right? But it does talk about when you come together, that you become one, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a connection with your soul and your spirit and your body anytime you become one with a person. And I totally agree with you, Shay. Like, churches don't do enough talking about the reasons why. If you haven't seen Michael Todd's series called Relationship Goals, and he has a new book out.
Yep.
Like, that's what helped transform my mind as far as understanding, right? He dove deep into what churches don't talk about, right? And the reasons why. Like you said, Shay, growing up in church, you hear, don't do it or you're going to hell. Just abstain from sex.
What was the name of that guy and book? series, whatever.
Michael Todd. He hasn't. The series is relationship goals. We'll put a link in the thing for this.
Yeah.
Name is Michael Todd.
And he just started a new one, Relationship Goals Reloaded, which I don't know if Quay and Dan, you all have heard it yet, but y'all was like dancing all around it when y'all were talking about principles.
And he also has a book out about relationships as well.
It just came out.
Okay, I just wanted to write his name down. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just kind of like, I feel as if it's almost like education, where in school kids get to go through absence class, and we really just kind of talk about preventative. Like, we don't really talk in the church about it. Like, even as we get older people get clammed up inside a church and kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe he spent a whole hour on this. And I just think that it'd be more beneficial to actually, express more at an earlier age versus as an adult. And, I remember being in youth classes in my church, my childhood church, and we did a couple things. And I remember sitting there and they were going around talking about, you should just abstain. God will, love you for this. You will love yourself. You have to wait for marriage. And the reality is that the more you tell someone not to do something, the more their urge is present to do exactly that. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was hearing you. I was like, yep, at times, definitely.
Yeah, I just feel as if the church has to do more. We have to do more if you want to do more than Christian. But this is a good if, because when you're dating and you're Christian, what does it mean to you or say to you if your wife isn't a virgin or your husband is, wanting beforehand?
A virgin, to me, that I think I call myself a born again virgin now, right? Because I have once I've developed a relationship with God, now I've made that commitment until marriage, and so it's not about what you've done in the past, but it's the mindset of where you are right now. It's your commitment to God, and how much are you willing to kill your flesh daily, to sacrifice and to deny yourself and pick up your cross and follow him. That's what I'm looking for. Even if your last time that you had, if I look at it like this, you're right, the church is not doing enough, but also what really transformed my mind was my relationship with God. It wasn't anything the church told me.
Right.
So I think that's why I tell my 19-year-old, focus more. I always encourage him to focus more on his relationship with God. Of course, I pour into him about staying, living a pure life, operating in purity, and just continuously chasing after God. But also, the most important thing, because is that relationship with God. Because without that, then you're waiting for the pulpit to tell you something that God has already told you. That's why we all have to get in the Word ourselves and develop a relationship with Him. Because when we're doing something outside of His will, the Holy Spirit will tell us what we're doing wrong. It's not about waiting for the pulpit. And I agree, we could do better from the pulpit, but the Holy Spirit living inside of us is more important than what we hear from the pulpit, because we already said that. One of my boys told me he heard from a pulpit that you can test the waters before you get married. So we can't always just listen to what's coming from the pulpit. Your relationship with God is the most important thing.
Anna, you were going to say something. What's that?
So I think, we have a responsibility as adults just to call a spade a spade. Like older generations, you'll talk to people who are older, they can't say the word vagina. They can't say the word penis. They don't even talk about that stuff. They don't girls don't even know their own bodies just anatomically. So I feel like we need to be more realistic about our sexual reproductive systems. Mm-hmm. I feel like we need to have more education about what goes on physically. If you are just leaving it as impurity is a lot. What does that mean? Which is why I specifically said masturbation. Does that count? Because if you are a person just listening in, you're like, well, I'm not touching anybody else. It must be cool. Porn, what does that do? What is the impact? We need to really delve deep into and be specific and be very transparent, which means calling a spade a spade. I have a 2-year-old son. He calls his penis a penis. He calls his testicles testicles. You know what I'm saying? because one, it's a safety thing. I mean, you call an arm, you call a neck, it's a like,
Right.
anatomically it's what it is. Right. Exactly. You need to tell them exactly what it is. Exactly. So I feel like we often kind of glaze over things because it has made people very uncomfortable. But that years of uncomfortability has allowed inappropriateness or impurity to kind of seep up within the church. I mean, there's scandals all the time, everywhere, not in the church, just everywhere. People struggle with, those issues of the flesh. But I think that as a church, people really need to take into account, this is how we're going to educate our kids. I say students because I'm a teacher. Sorry, that's always going to come out.
Yes, girl.
This is how we're going to educate about the body, about natural urges, about natural interactions, and what we have to do as a people in order to keep ourselves pure, in order to keep ourselves on the right track. I feel like because it's like this fantasy, like boogeyman, like you will have nocturnal emissions as a man. You will, especially if you're not touching yourself. Like that is something that happens to everybody. It's something that happens. And we don't talk about that. We introduce shame. And when you introduce shame, you introduce hiding and not being transparent. And I feel like that's what needs to happen as a transparency. One, physically, like anatomically, we need to call a spade, and really talking about what it means to be pure, talking about what impure thoughts are, and even like going into what the Bible deems appropriate, what the Bible deems inappropriate.
And I can touch on that, on the Bible deemed appropriate, just the combination of both of what you guys said, especially Dan, on you know with the spirit when something is right or not. The more time you spend in the Word. That's why I love all these Bible plan devotions. Like, there's no excuse, no reason, especially for millennials and young adults and Christian that are believers and want to delve into Christian day. We have access to all of this stuff, and these plans are amazing because they go into other people's lives. But now you're getting that biblical proof with it. So even if you don't have spiritual guidance and counselors, use those Bible plans. Use the evidence of others that are in the Word and read about it. And the more you read about it, the more familiar you be with it. It's just like getting to know somebody. You getting to know God through the source, through the book, through these plans, through these devotions will help you when you're in situations to know, is this right or is this not right? And it'll help
Okay.
You think that works for a 16-year-old?
Okay,
hold on, Tavy, go ahead.
So Quay, I hear what you're saying. I hear you and I agree. But I guess I kind of want to go back to what Onna was talking about and what you touched on.
This is the add on.
Let me finish. I'm not saying that you are, but I feel like what we need to dig deeper on is the education. The education, but kind of the cause. Like, I think all of these other things, and I was listening to Michael Todd's relationship series earlier, like he touched on it. A lot of these things, they're symptoms. These are the result of other things. And I think if we go back to the fact that, as Onna pointed out, a lot of people who are older, they don't feel comfortable having conversations about sex. And this is in and outside of Christianity, like just people in general. Like, in some of the work that I've done in trying to train people and have conversations about how to prevent sexual harassment or assault, it's part of that is because you got to know how to talk about it. You have to be comfortable with it. And I think as Christians, or the church, because it's not talked about, it was always this thing of, don't do it and you ask why, because I said so. And because the message, and I would love to know from Dan and Quay, like what message was given to you all as men, because I know as women or girls growing up, it was always, don't do it, you're the prize, or you don't need to have sex before you get married, you don't need to do anything, we're not going to have this conversation, just don't do it, because if you do it, then you are impure and you're dirty, or you're this or you're that and you're wrong, or nobody's going to. So it's like, it developed shame, because then because let's be real, speaking from my personal experience, growing up, it was don't have sex, abstain. So in my mind, yes, I'm going to wait until I'm married to have sex. I'm going to, because that's what I'm supposed to do. There was never, that we kind of touched on the here and there, but there was never a lot of in-depth conversation about it. Like Onna and I used to joke, in our sex ed class, you didn't really learn about the body. You learned about, don't do it. if you don't do it, you can't get pregnant. You can't get an STD because
you get AIDS.
Can't get AIDS. So it's like, if you have sex, then you get pregnant. And it was almost like the messaging was kind of like, it was an absolute, like, if you have sex, then this is going to happen. And all of the things that were going to happen were all of the negatives. And so, like, I think Shay or Onna, you all pointed out, it's like, if you keep telling someone not to do something or they can't, we're curious. And I guess what I'm trying to get to is all of those messages. So then when realistically, like for me, I'm not a virgin anymore. I did end up having sex before I got married, but after it happened, immediately is, oh my God, I am a bad person.
Right.
And because the shame, all that stuff had been built up over the years. And so then it's like trying to reconcile. And yes, I know enough to know that, okay, I got to go based on what my relationship with God is and work through that. But everybody's not there. And if, for people who are listening, who maybe you grew up under religion and that's all you've heard, and then it's like, hey, okay, I have fallen short. I have done something so that isn't, I haven't been completely pure. Now what do I do? Like, now I'm, it's like bridging the gap between that. And everyone doesn't have the benefit of being in a church where they are being honest and transparent. And granted, yes, most of us can get on the internet and hear about Mike Todd's things, but everybody doesn't have access to the internet either. So it's just like,
or nobody has the willpower to, or not the willpower, the wanting to do it, or,
Exactly, because if it's been so ingrained, it's like, I think we were done a disservice. And it's not a knock or placing blame on those who taught us, because I think a lot of them, they were going based off what they knew. And so, but it's like, okay, going forward, how do we adjust? How do we correct so that our children don't grow up feeling oppressed or under that same level of shame? And like, and I think kind of Onna, she talked about like having those conversations of, this is how it works. This is what it is. It's kind of unrelated, but I remember once in my church growing up for Easter, we had someone, a doctor who was a medical doctor. And so instead of doing like a traditional message, the pastor had him come up, and essentially he had a diagram of a body. And he went through the story of the crucifixion, not the story, but he went through crucifixion. But instead of just talking about the message you usually hear, he literally showed everyone, this is where, like where on the body the nails went, the process that it went through for him to even be able to say the word, like all of the things physically that went on. And I know for me, that made it even more real, because I now have the theory, the theology, I have that, but I have something tangible that I can see and I can connect it to. And so that makes me have an even greater appreciation for the sacrifice that Jesus did, him dying, like a greater appreciation. So I think if we can marry the two, like have, like, yes, this is what the word says, and this is what you should aspire to. However, if when you fall short,
you're not ostracized.
You're not ostracized. Like, there's now therefore no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Like all that stuff, like I heard those things, but that to me, it's like, that's real. Like, yes. And it even says, all have fallen short of the glory of God, but it's like that part, the connection, I feel like isn't always there. So it's just like, we need to do more of that, of just instilling that in people and specifically in children.
Right. And I mean, even like, I remember being not very young, but young, when I lost my virginity. And, I was always the rebel anyway. So you told me not to do something, I'm probably going to go do it anyway. But, it was just one of those things. It's a natural urge. So I feel like when people do fall short, there should be someone not saying, oh my God, you're going to hell. But here we are. And here we are as adults trying to figure out, we classify ourselves as Christian, we classify ourselves as trying to be in a relationship. But when we try to put all these things together, I think it's really about trying to find someone who is equally yoked, or our mindset is equal. And I don't think that, one person's view can define another person's relationship at the end of the day. I think it definitely comes down to the people who is in the relationship, especially who are Christians. Every household is different. Dan has his own little mindset about, how his spouse, or his spouse is going to get canceled, and you know, Onna has her own mindset, and Latavia and Quay and I think it's just, you know, putting all these things together to make relationship works in Christian. I think, does it work by putting a label on top of it? Is, so we talked about this the first episode, is dating different than versus Christian dating, but like when you put all this stuff together, does the label really work?
The label of what?
Christianity. Like, you know, we sit there and say that, you know, we fail, the church is failing as to talk about Christian dating and the actual like, let's just put it out there. The church is failing on educating all of us on all these areas. How long do we court? How long do we date? What is okay about sex? How do we talk about it? How do we talk to our kids about it? How do we get over just even saying vagina in church? Like, let's just be, well, I mean, I'm just saying, well, so what do we do? How do we, because we all talk about the older generation, we are now a new generation. What do you see yourselves doing to help this transition for the people that are coming under us?
So I can start off with, when I first started my journey a little over 2 years ago, I was looking for, even though I was going to Raw, the group that Quay was talking about, I was looking for, and that was just a mixed group of men. I was looking for a specific single men's group. And at the time, there wasn't one. And so what I did is I worked with our leadership to, you know, receive the training that I needed. And I started my own single men's group. So I think that, again, when there's a burden that when we recognize that there's a burden for something, especially it's a burden that will help to draw people closer to God and allow us to do things according to God's will, then we step up and we pray to God and say, Lord, this has been in my heart. This has been on my heart. So I would love to make an impact in this. Not saying that we all have to lead something, but we can work with our church. We can work with our community and say, you know, this has been on my mind. You never know who else you may come in contact with to say, all right, let's do something about this. Because to me, it's too many people on the sideline saying, man, this is a problem. But what are we actually doing about it? Yeah. Let's step up and have, I totally agree with everything you guys are saying. Why don't we have sex ed in our churches? For children that start, I mean, we got to start early now, 10 through the teens.
Very.
I like Onna, I teach education. So I teach sixth grade now, but I've had second graders come in and say stuff that I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know you knew what this was. So I think it definitely starts really early, you know, about educating them.
And like you said, you know, it's a lot of parents, parents at all ages. You know, it took me a while to be completely transparent with my son, my 19-year-old, but I said, you know what?
Yes.
I will not allow him to go through the same things I did because of my shame. And so I had to understand that I no longer live in shame, right? I had to receive that. And so I had to be open and honest with him to say, look, these are things I did and I learned from them, and I don't want you to follow in my footsteps, right? But it goes back to, like, we have, again, and that's something I'm gonna bring up. Is like, why don't we have sex ed in our churches? I don't understand that. Knowing that that's a huge problem, right, in our communities. And if we teach our young children who are in there, you know, I don't know how young we're going to go with this, but if we start to teach them, then they can be a light in their communities, in their schools and things like that. Even if they don't go out there, you know, and just really push it, but at least when people come to them and say certain things, they be like, nah, you know what, this is what I've learned about it. So why don't we do that? Now you got me really thinking about it.
I can answer, man. I just thought of a whole lot just now. Honestly, it's the shame thing. A lot of people are ashamed that their past will get dug up and brought up. And I'm glad you said it like that, Dan, because we have to be transparent and open. Yeah, I'm a virgin, but it doesn't mean I've been perfect. It doesn't mean I've been pure. In fact, I'm about 3 years now pure of oral sex. So to some people, if you have had oral, you're not a virgin. Most people, they say, nah, you're a virgin. So however you want to take it, and I guess we can have a conversation about that one after or whatever. But transparency is key. If like all leaders of all people just be open, you know what I mean? And I don't know everybody's takes about how Bishop John Gray came out about he was cheating in that whole situation, but look how they moved forward in that season. But yet there's a lot of people that still frown upon him because of that situation. And at least he came open and honest. I got a friend who, you know, he loves the Lord, he loves the Bible, he believes he's doing his work, but he doesn't like going to church because he said it's too many phonies. And that's the problem. It's like we're not being, and that's the problem. Like you have to be open and transparent because you're not gonna have the message without the mess. And we all have to be open about our mess in order to educate. So that's one of the key things in that sex education that would help is if we're all willing to be open and share, like, this is what I went through. Don't judge me, don't shame me, and I won't judge and shame you neither.
I'm always about being transparent, or trying to be, at least to a certain extent. Even with the church, I know that some people look at me sometimes and be like, Shay, you can't say that. And I'm like, yes, I can. If I'm going to say it outside of church, I might as well say it inside of church. That's my mindset. That's how I believe. I've always been that person. Like, if I'm going to say it here in the comfort of my home, plus if it comes to my mind and it comes out my mouth, it's wherever I'm standing. Because at the end of the day, as the good book says, you are the church. So, no, regardless of where you are, now, whether or not I'm a good version of the church is a different story, but that's not the point. So I think that we have covered a lot of ground here. Anybody have anything else they want to add about Christian dating?
I wonder, like you just mentioned, in terms about if it's on your mind, if you're going to say it outside of church, you'll say it in church. I think that's another thing that, in terms of when we're looking at solutions, is the whole how you should act in church, what you should say in church. It's like all of the shoulds. And once again, I think it's the religion. And so I think a lot of times when we're talking about it in the context of dating, Christian dating or dating in general, we have so many messages that we've received that are influencing our decisions. And then it's like trying to reconcile the difference between the two. So it's just like, can we just let go of all of the shoulds?
Right.
This
I agree.
is how you do it. And this is, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't say that. Why not?
Even in relationships in Christian dating.
Yeah. And I agree. I think church has done a terrible job at, and I grew up in that, where they pushed more so man-made religious rules rather than relationship with God. And that's where the church has failed, completely, right? And that's where you get that, don't have sex or you're going to hell. Like, that's not what God said. God said there's reasons why. So again, diving deep into that, and then again, being transparent about what, those leaders being transparent about what they struggle with while they're giving you the word, sharing that with you. I think that's more impactful rather than don't do this because you're going to hell. So again, churches need to stop all the rules. Like you said, you act this way in church, those are rules. That's phoniness. That's presenting yourself this way here, but you're being somebody else out here. Those are religious rules, and that religious culture will never, it will never be effective. Yeah. Because I grew up like that. I used to be in church acting like the golden child.
Right.
As soon as I get, even in church, we ain't had text, we ain't had phones back then, but me and my boys, we talking about, I know, I'm old, right? So we talking about what we gonna do later on that night, which go-go we going to on a Sunday night. You know what I'm saying? So we had a way that we had to act in church, but then we already knew what we were gonna get into later on that night. So that's terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
And to that point, I think that contributes to the whole notion of Christian guys are worse than the guys in the world, or church girls are this, because you're so busy trying to put out an image or present a representative that it's like it breeded hypocrites.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, go to church and get you a girl, or find a good man in the church, and he's acting one way in the church, and then you get out and you're dating him and it's something completely different, which, that makes me think of the whole ghosting phenomenon in dating, but we might have to save that for another day and time.
And I think another thing I'll add is just going back and just agreeing with what you guys are saying is, in terms of the transparency, it's like we're dropping the shoulds. The reason why it's so important is because how are we going to be able to reach others, especially the young audience, especially those that struggle, if we can't come down to where they're at? And coming down to people does not mean making yourself less of who you are. It's just meaning understanding where they are and seeing how you can navigate and guide and let the Holy Spirit use you to be able to reach them and help them in their upbringing of Christian dating and purity.
So I think that we all touched on a lot of good points. So I just want to take a moment real quick. And this has been a really good couple of episodes. So what is one takeaway that you took away that you're going to apply to your dating life as Christians? Don't all jump at once.
I can start off. I think it goes back to relationship with God over religious beliefs and rules, right? Sometimes, again, that's why he says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so that transforming of the renewing of your mind also means the stuff that you were taught growing up, you have to throw that stuff out. And so I think it's more so about relationship than religion.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would say moving forward, maybe introducing counsel, because I am not one who really asks many opinions about what I do from other people. I kind of just do what I do and move on. So from the discussion, I can see the value of kind of seeking counsel with many things in my life, but definitely relationships and dating for sure.
Quay, what's your takeaway? You like how I run there? Sorry.
Very nice, man. Whew. Takeaway gotta be, man. I feel like I got so much in my head. I'm trying to really get it going. So much good stuff's been said.
You want us to come back to you?
Words back to me because I got it, but I'm trying to come back.
Like the person, you gotta be the last person to order.
No. I'm not trying to be
And that's usually me.
I know.
what you
Like,
guys
Come back.
Well, you have until Octavia's done, so get to thinking.
Okay, all right, got it.
I try to help you out. No. Let go of the shoulds. Let go of the shoulds.
Always, yeah.
Having honest conversation. It's okay if it's not what. Yeah, it's okay. Just be honest, be you. And check it against what the word says. If you and God are good, it don't matter what anybody else says or thinks.
Yes. Boom.
And focus on that.
All right, Quay.
All right, I got it. Just considering that everybody doesn't have the access that we have access to, so try to find and reach those, especially in terms of the education, being more open to the education and relationship of being able to share and promote wisdom of Christian dating.
I love it.
Shay?
Oh, I'm going to say it.
All right.
My biggest takeaway from both of these episodes, I've learned a lot from all of you and heard a lot of different perspectives, which I think this is what this is for. This whole platform is to hear about perspective and hear how other people think. So my biggest takeaway is, of course, I'm going to stay transparent, but to be open to other things like the seeking counsel or, making sure that, just like Latavia, I'm reading the Bible. So applying those processes throughout life and understanding that even though I fall short because I am human, just like everybody else, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all good. So I hope that you guys loved being a part of this part 2. I know that we are very excited, Latavia and I, to have you guys back, and Onna. And before we go, just in case someone didn't listen to part 1, can you just tell them where to find you on Instagram, Facebook, or any social media platform, or anything that you have coming up? Let's go with Quay.
Of course. Well, what's up, everybody? It's your very own Kwesi Adoko. You can find me on all social media platforms at KWE Worldwide, as well as Facebook, KWESI, last name ADOO. Get at your boy. Stay blessed. Stay true to who you are. Come on.
Wait, you want a career in radio?
Right.
I know, right?
Wait,
You need a career.
Set the bar kind of high there. I don't know.
I
don't know.
didn't know
What was this the whole time?
You went into promo mode.
Well,
What I do, man. Come when you need the promo for the show. I got you. You know what I
Oh
mean?
Lord.
Okay.
Dan, what's up?
Hey, that's great.
Dan?
Oh, Dan Van Zago. You can find me on IG, and also what's that other one?
Facebook?
Facebook, and I also have a YouTube channel called Men Purposely Pursuing Purity, where I do interviews with folks, and I have a new one. I have a new platform called In the Den with Dan.
Yeah.
Daniel in the Den, like, you know, a little play on words right there.
Oh, I get it. I get it.
Oh, bam!
I mean, at
Drop
first I thought it was just a cute little like tag, but then you explained it, and now I get it.
Yeah, so I'm coming with that fire, right? So we have a show coming up Tuesday. It's going to be live IG. I'm sorry. It's going to be on IG, but also I'm going to put on my YouTube channel. We're going to talk about what it means to be spiritually attractive. So that's going to be fire.
Ooh. We gotta make sure we share that.
Yeah, send us the
Did
information.
you drop the date for that? Like, when is
Yeah.
that coming
Do you
out?
have a date?
Well,
This
it all
episode-
depends on it all depends on
This
it's
episode-
gonna be on my YouTube. It'll be on my YouTube channel, so you guys can find. It'll be on IG, but the recording will be on my YouTube channel.
We will share no words. Listen, we're all about promoting other people.
Yeah.
And Onna, where can we find you at, girl?
My name is Onna. So on Facebook, it's Onna Noel, Noell. Yeah, that's how you spell it. That's crazy. I tripped on that. Anyway, and then on Instagram, my name is Honesty, Onnesty.
I always think that's a really cool name, by the way.
Thank you. You know, on other platforms, other people have taken it. Like on Twitter, it can't be Honesty because someone else took it. Like,
I mean, I really think it's cute. I love it.
thank you.
And I just want to point out that her name is spelled with an O. Don't be out here trying to find her with an A.
Well,
Onna.
Onna. It's like Donna without the D to make it easier for folks. And
She's unique.
Yes.
Facts.
If you all are not already following us, you can follow us on Instagram at podcast It's All Good. On Facebook, It's All Good is the title of the page. You can follow me personally on Instagram at Lala_Esquire. Shay is Get Kissed by Shay. If you haven't subscribed yet, I don't know why. We would love for you to go ahead and do that so that you can hear and get updates when we have new episodes.
Doing it now.
Huh?
Doing it now.
Okay, thank you. New episodes every Wednesday. We thank you all so much for listening. We would love to hear your thoughts, comments on the episodes, this topic. If you have suggestions on how we can contribute to moving things forward, let us know. As Dan mentioned, he's going to try to get a sex ed class started in the church. We're going to continue to do our part of just creating space to facilitate the conversation, because I think a lot of it is going to come from us just getting comfortable having the conversation, and then we can keep moving forward. So thank you all for listening, and remember, it's about the process, and it's all good.
It's all good. It's all good. Good, 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 good.
Till next time.
Bye.
Later, y'all.